talk a little bit about perimeter. Perimeter is a new concept for a third grade student. It's not something they come to you with any prior learning about from second grade. You introduce it in third grade. So not only are you having to introduce what perimeter is and have kids understand what it is, how you calculate it, what it means, but there are also other parts of that TEK, like if I give you the perimeter and one side, calculate the missing side. So let's kind of talk about what kids have to learn about perimeter. So perimeter, students need to understand, is the distance around a given shape. Talk about that in the real world with your students. Have them think about a fence on the playground or a fence around their yard or around the school. That fence is the perimeter of that given area. They might also look around the classroom for different things that would be perimeter. If this was a bulletin board in my classroom and I had a pretty little border around it, it would be the perimeter of the bulletin board. Mine has a silver border all the way around it. That is the perimeter of my whiteboard. So we need kids to understand what perimeter is. And one way we talked about that at the C&P is we look at the word perimeter. And we see right in the middle of the word perimeter, the word rim. And so we can talk about remembering that the rim of something is the outside edge of it, and that might be a way to help kids remember what perimeter is. Now, usually once kids understand what perimeter is, then they understand why you would add all the sides of a figure up to find the perimeter. And so that's not typically where the struggle is. Typically, the struggle comes with things that we don't really expect as adults. For example, if I asked the student to find the perimeter of a rectangle, and I gave them this rectangle, and I said this side is 3 and this side is 5, I know, and you know, and they know that both sides of this are equal if they know it's a rectangle, and the opposite sides here are equal. That doesn't always seem to translate to calculating perimeter. So one thing we have to teach them is label all the sides. If this side is 3, then I know this side is 3. If this side is 5, I know this side is 5. Now I have all sides. Now I can calculate the perimeter. Now, something else that gets them in trouble is if this was a square and only one side was given. If I have a square with one side of 2, they can all tell you that all sides of a square are equal. But when they're given like this and asked for perimeter, they have to know that means I need to label all the sides before I calculate perimeter. So let's think about some things that kids have to be able to do with this information. Typically, it's going to be in a problem-solving setting where there's a word problem and they're given some information and they've got to figure out, am I being asked for area? Am I being asked for perimeter? And that sometimes gets to be a struggle. So you're going to have to make sure that when you're teaching this, and you've taught perimeter, you've taught area, that there's problem-solving time where they're all mixed up. Can't just be in isolation. One of the parts of our TEKs that our kids tend to struggle with the most is the find the missing side part of this TEK. So it says if I give you the perimeter and one side, you find the missing side. So I want to look at one that we did at the C&P with you. So I have some tiles here for us to look at together. So let's say I have a perimeter that has I have a rectangle that has a perimeter of 26. And we did this example at the C&P. And I say to you, one side is 9, find the missing side. So you can see here that I have 9 square tiles. And I know that if this side is 9 and it's a rectangle, then this side also has to be 9. Now, kids need to be able to figure out what's this part, the missing side. So if my perimeter is 26 and I have 9 here and 9 here, most kids will tell you that's 18. And if this is the missing part, then I need to have 26 tiles. So here's 9, 9 is 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. and they will say, I need 26 tiles to have a perimeter of 26. And then they'll look at it and they'll say, okay, well, they have to be even, so I'm going to put 4 on this side and 4 on this side. And many of us did the same thing at the C&P. And I need you to let the kids make the same mistake that you made, because that's how they're going to learn. So when kids build this, I would say to them, just like I asked many of you at the C&P, do you have a perimeter of 26? And you said yes. And I said, do you have a side of 9? Yes. And I said, so what's the other side? And then you would tell me, it's 6. And I said, what if I told you you have a perimeter of 30? And many of you gave me very wrinkled forehead looks, very scrunchy faced looks. And I said, you have a perimeter of 30, and this is what you did, and this is what kids will do. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 6. No, Miss Cooper, I have 26. And I need you to let them make that mistake, because what they need to understand is this is one side and this is another side. So if this is 9 and this is 9, I have to look at this side completely. This is 6 and this is 6. So this is 9 plus 9 plus 6 plus 6. So when they're counting it, they have to remember that this corner piece is part of the length and it's part of the width. So the reason this is super important is this is tested on paper where it's a grid, and they have to know to count both of edges of that corner. So really, to make a perimeter of 26, I have to lose some of those because I have too many. And I need you to let them figure out what change they need to make to have a perimeter of 26. Now I have 9 and 9 is 18, plus 4 is 22, plus 4 is 26. So I need you to let them make that mistake. And remember, I've given you several examples of these on the shared drive. The 3rd grade shared drive has a folder for this TEK, and it's got a flip chart in it with several examples that they can figure out the mystery side. So that's a really important part of this TEK. Oh, before I move on from this, one thing I really want you to notice is I've said side every time. I haven't said length and width. And the reason I did that is we have a lot of kids who have this idea that the length is always the long side and the width is the short side. And that's not necessarily true. So I need us to make sure that we're not using those always kinds of statements unless it really is an always. You and I have all seen things that are longer than they are wide or wider than they are long. So let's make sure when we say an always statement with kids that it really is always true. So one other thing we talked about with perimeter and missing sides at the C&P is using a strip diagram. So we talked about if we drew this rectangle and we knew this is 9, so we know this is 9, and we're trying to figure out the missing sides. What if we used a strip diagram? Another teacher brought that up and I thought that's an interesting idea. So what if we did use a strip diagram? So here's my strip diagram. I know the total perimeter. Perimeter is 26. I've got that. I also know it's a rectangle, so I know it's got 4 sides, so I need 4 sides here. I know 2 of the sides because I'm told one side is 9, and on a rectangle, if this is 9, then this has to be 9. So now I have to find my 2 missing parts, which I know are equal. So I could say this is 18 and this is the rest. Now what this can help kids with is a lot of times when they get to this point, they will say 26 minus 18 is 8. And so they say the other side is 8. Instead of breaking it into 2 sides. This side and this side have to total 8, not just 8 is the difference between the perimeter and these 2 sides. So I thought that was a really good strategy to have kids use to put all the pieces together. I know it's a quadrilateral, so I know there must be 4 sides. So this is not just one missing part, it's 2 equal parts. And we thought that would help kids remember that this missing dimension has to be divided into 2 equal parts to be a rectangle. So I really want to encourage you, while you're studying perimeter with your kids, have them build. They've got to have time with the concrete objects to understand what perimeter is and what that length is and what that width is. They can't develop all of that understanding through drawings. Yes, they have to get to this point, but we need to start with concrete before we move to pictorial. Then we can get farther into just add the sides up. But we've got to start with that concrete understanding. So I really want you to do that mystery activity. It's set up as kind of a detective thing on the shared drive, and allow kids to really explore with the tiles to figure those problems out. Don't let them just draw it. Have them explore with the tiles.